Heartily welcome to part 2 av min prat med fantastiske Adam Haigh. Dersom du ikke har hørt del 1, så anbefaler jeg deg kanskje å gå tilbake og gjøre det. Følg gjerne på sosiale medier og legge en anmeldelse hvor enn du hører denne podcasten. Og så sier jeg bare god fornøyelse med del 2.
Og så Sigurd, less is more på introen, ikke sant?
Husk at du lever drømmen.
And I think I went to study performing because that was all I knew. Yeah. Because you don't go to college to be a choreographer or a director. You just think that the way forward is to be a performer and to be on the West End, right? It's all you kind of like know.
Yeah.
So then my mind started turning in the second year, and then I started to play, I guess, in a studio by myself. And see how I could interpret different movements, and then I started to sort of coax friends into staying after college for an hour in a studio and put some choreography on them or do some scenes, and it just felt very normal. I didn't feel out of my depth like I did when I was performing. I was like, this is the bingo moment. This is what I guess I should be doing. So then in my third year, I really boldly asked the principal of the school if I could put on a show at the school and if I could direct it and choreograph it. And I would invite lots of people who worked in the theatre industry to come and watch it, to kind of give me feedback. Really bold for...
Very bold.
Yeah, I don't know. I was very gun
brave.
Brave, yeah. I was very brave at that age.
Yeah.
I think I'm still quite brave now, but yeah, I had no fear of anything.
That's such a good quality.
I was so fearless. And I remember the principal of the school saying to me, well, yes, we can do that because we have studio space and we have a lot of performers here and we have lights and costumes, but you are going into a business. It's called show business, and you need to learn how that works. It's a two-way street. So what am I going to get out of this? Because that's what producers will ask you when you're a director or a choreographer. This woman is amazing. She's built this incredible school. She knows what she's doing. Yeah.
Very clever on her part.
Yeah. And I said, I don't really know. I think I was a bit taken aback and sort of really surprised. So I said, can I have an evening to think about it? I said, yes. Came back the next day. And I said, all the money that we raise, I will give it to a charity that you think is the most appropriate for the school. And at that time, I didn't know, but her daughter was going through an operation, an eye treatment operation, and I actually didn't know that. And she said, okay, I know a charity that we can give it to. And all the money that was raised was to go to this the charity for, I think it was eye cancer.
Yeah.
And that's how we agreed on our business. So I then started choreographing this show. It was called An Evening of Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Fantastic. Yeah. It was all from Love Never Dies, I assume.
No, it was not.
His best work.
Yeah. I actually quite like some of the songs though in Love Never Dies.
Till I Hear You Sing
is a banger.
Yeah.
So we did. So the choreograph bits were his early works like Song and Dance.
Yeah.
And then I did we had an instrumental version of Till I Hear You Sing, and I did a ballet duet to it.
Yeah.
And then we had some people doing some scene work from Sunset Boulevard, and it was kind of this evening, and we put on champagne, everyone dressed up in like tuxedos and dresses, and I invited all these really sort of influential people from the industry, and we did 2 nights.
And they came.
Yeah, they came, and it was full for 2 evenings, and we raised, I think I charged like £10 a ticket, and all the money, I took none of it, all the money just went to this charity, and that's how I directed and choreographed my first show.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a very cool story.
Yeah, and then it all kind of, I guess I learned from that 1, I really enjoyed it. 2, I was pretty good at it. And 3, I could see myself getting somewhere with it. Rather, as a performer, I was like, I think I'm going to reach my peak, maybe being ensemble number 5 in this show. But I know that I can't sing Chris in Miss Saigon. I know that I would really struggle to compete with people in a room like that. Whereas I felt really good in a room doing this, because I was like, oh, people trust me and people listen to me, and I must know what I'm talking about. So that's how it spiraled. And then I started doing fringe work. Well, actually, no, I did performing first for about 5 years after college.
Really? Was that hard?
Yeah, because I always knew that I wanted to be a director and a choreographer.
Yeah.
So I was always so the rehearsals were really exciting for me, because I love being in a rehearsal room. And I wasn't like yearning to be on the other side. I enjoyed performing. I did, you know.
What were some of the productions you did?
I did Hairspray.
Yeah.
I did. What else did I do? Did Grease.
Yeah. In London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did, and then I did a lot of like international touring as
wow.
well. Went to like Singapore. Went to Hong Kong. Yeah,
wow.
It was really, really cool. What else did I do? I did Anastasia. I did quite a few like dance company stuff. So I had a really did a few cruise ships. So I had quite a mixed performing career. Did musicals, a lot of cabaret work, some dance work.
Yeah.
So that was really good, but there was always like this niggle in the back of my mind. I was like, because like I said, the rehearsal process I loved. I love tech. I love seeing all the elements come together.
As the only actor in the world.
Right. Yeah. But mainly because I wasn't seeing it from an acting perspective.
Probably. Yeah.
I was always going, oh yeah, that was a really cool way of changing that lighting state, or that was a really good solution of how to get that set piece on. I probably wasn't even really thinking about what my track was doing.
No.
I was just thinking about, what the director and the choreographer were doing. But then when we got to the show, I got the adrenaline for the first 2 shows, and then it really sank in that I was doing this for X amount of time, and I was like, this is not for me. This is really not for me, because all I wanted to do was be in the rehearsal process, create, explore, find things, which you can do as an actor, of course, to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
When you're in a long-running show.
Yeah.
So then, I did the performing, and then I just made an executive decision with my agent at the time that I have to stop auditioning. And if I want to really make something of this creative career, I've got to really take it seriously.
That must have been such a scary moment.
Really scary, because I was looking into nothing.
Yeah.
My agent was like, well, who's going to hire you?
Yeah. And you put all this time into becoming a performer on stage.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden, no.
And people know you as a performer as well.
Exactly.
So when, I go in to meet, this big director, and they see Adam that was in the ensemble of that show, and they're like, oh, so you want to choreograph a show? And I'm like, yeah. That was really hard, but I think once you get the ball rolling and you get into a room with people and you prove that you can do it, that's all it takes. And then suddenly they will talk to the ex-director, and we'll talk to another producer, blah, 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 blah. And then it starts. So once you get those 1 or 2 jobs under your belt...
How'd you get those first 1 or 2 jobs?
By someone taking a chance on you.
Yeah.
And being really fearless, going back to that word again, is, I can't remember who said it to me, but someone said to me once, as a creative, the phone will never ring for you. You've got to go out and make your work. As an actor, it's different because your agent will call and go, hello, darling, you've got an audition next week. No one's going to do that as a creative unless you are, the next big Olivier Tony Award, blah, blah, blah. So you've got to go out and you've got to persuade people that you know what you're doing or you've got a vision. So I started choreographing shows at a lovely fringe theatre in London called the Union Theatre.
Okay.
It's near London Bridge. And there's an amazing woman who runs it called Sasha Regan. Shout out to Sasha Regan.
This podcast is filled with amazing women.
I know, yeah. And she gave me an opportunity to choreograph a show which was a musical version of Carmen.
Right. The opera.
Yeah. And it was only running for a couple of weeks, and I was working with this director called Phil Wilmot, who had been directing for a very long time, was very well known across the fringe sort of world in London. And that's how I got my first job as a choreographer for a musical.
Yeah.
And was very business-minded in terms of I would collect all the reviews that came in. I would make sure that I collated all the videos that I had of rehearsals, and any sort of pictures, professional pictures that were taken, I would keep them. And then from there, would just send footage out to people and say, look, I've got this show on, here's some pictures, here's some reels, if you want to come and watch it, come along. And was inviting people to come and watch it. And that's how the ball started rolling, because they would see the show. If they liked it, they would get in contact and say, maybe you could come and do this show. And then that's how it sort of, yeah.
Wow. So how long ago is that? That
was
10 years ago?
I've been choreographing now for about 7 years-ish. No, hold on. I left college in 2000. I've been doing it for 12 years. I was performing for 5, and I've been doing choreography for 7, going on nearly 8 years now.
Right.
So this was around 2017, 2018 when I stopped performing. And then, I think from 2018, 19, beginning of 20 was when it all started picking up, and I was getting jobs, and it was, I wasn't making any money from it for sure. I was sort of doing a lot of side hustle teaching and bar work, because I was doing fringe shows that was paying me not a lot of money. But I wasn't going to get a big show because obviously I was not very well known as a choreographer. Why would somebody trust me and go, there you go, there's a big show? So I was getting a lot of fringe shows. It was starting to happen. The ball was rolling, and then COVID hit.
That must have been quite a blow.
It was bang. It was, I was just sort of finding my feet.
Yeah, you were just on the cusp of...
I was people are starting to know who I am. I'm eventually starting to get emails and people ringing in oh, hi, are you free? Which is the dream, because obviously you're doing that at first. You're ringing people going, hi, can I have a job? And then, they're coming to you, and then the world shuts down.
That was rough on theatre business, yeah.
How was it for you, COVID?
Strange. It was very strange. It was, because there was a lot to do with the, what's it called? Subsidies?
Mm-hmm.
Subsidies? There were very strange times, really.
Mm-hmm.
So we had just... I was at Folketeateret, where we did Jesus Christ Superstar. We had opened chess, I think 3 weeks before COVID hit. And everything just stopped. We had a very strange day where we were told, do not come to the theatre, and then we would... get this because no one knew. We were still just finding our feet in this strange scenario. And I remember we got called into the theatre, had to have a lot of distance between us, and they were okay, so we're being shut down now. And everyone was what? that's so strange. Like, we'd never thought that could happen. Being shut down, what we're going to do is we're going to meet up probably once a week, run the show, because we don't know when this is going to open up again. We thought it could be a matter of weeks, you know? So we would meet once a week, run through the show, and then we would be ready to...
With social distancing, or was it...
with like proper...
Yeah.
And I remember them saying, but we're not going to do it for at least 2 or 3 weeks. We just need to let the dust settle. So go home, and we hope to see you very shortly. The next day, we get an email from the theatre. Everyone come in, we need to play tonight. We're like, what? So we enter the theatre and we're like, to play tonight? There's no audience. There's no one's allowed to come and watch this.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, we're taking on our microphones, putting on makeup, putting on our costumes, like, but it's going to be an empty room. So we walk out on stage, and then the bosses came down and like, sit down, we're going to talk to you what happened. The thing is, the deal we had with the subsidies was they cover it if we run the show. They don't cover it if we cancel it.
Right.
So we sort of had to play the show, but they had obviously called up and figured out, like, of course we're not going to play for an empty room. Like, what's the value in that? Yeah. Especially when everyone's trying to keep a distance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we went home, and then we were shut down for quite a long time.
And then when did it return for you?
We actually had... we started playing... I think it was about 6 or 7 months. We closed on February 12th. And I think in August we started playing, but then it was only allowed to have 200 people in the room, and it takes 1,400 seats.
Yeah, it's a big theatre.
But then actually I think the state would cover the rest of the tickets.
Right.
It was something like that. So we would play for 200 people. So I was thrilled I was able to go to work. I was able to play, and it was still a very strange time. And we started rehearsals for, it's a children's play called Kardemommeby. It was this cultural phenomenon in Norway, where we had all the rehearsals with masks on, and we get to the premiere and we're not really allowed to have the premiere. So we could only play for people who were at work, and that's the people who write the reviews. So in that room, there were 2 people. So it's 1,398 vacant seats, and we're playing, and I had like a comedy character. So it's like, that'll
be something you'll never forget.
Yes, I'll never forget that. And then they opened so we could play for 20. So we play for 20 people.
Even still, 20 in that house is...
nothing.
Yeah.
You don't even hear the applause. Over the sound of the music on stage, you couldn't hear it.
Just applaud yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just trying to make the other actors laugh.
Oh my goodness, that is...
It was brutal.
That's really brutal.
Yeah. And especially, I work in the private sector. It was a lot easier for the people who work in the state-subsidized theatres because they're on a monthly salary and everything. Like, I get paid per show I play. That's how I get paid. So if I'm not playing shows,
where's the money
I'm not getting paid.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was strange.
Yeah. Really rough.
And London got hit hard.
It was really bad. I was also working in a supermarket.
Really?
Because no one was...
behind a glass wall and...
No, all my stuff. I was doing evening shifts at a supermarket, doing 9 in the evening till 7 in the morning, stacking shelves. It was
awful. Shoot me now, yeah.
It was awful. Because obviously there's no creative work. Producers weren't producing anything. There was no shows. Especially opening a show, which would be your... Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm not sort of in a place where I'm an actor in a long-running show. I'm employed to create a show. Yeah. So I was like, oh, God. So I ended up working at a supermarket for, I think it was about 6 months. And it was awful. It was... I look back on that time and think, oh my goodness. I mean, it could have been longer, but thankfully I got a job working at a drama school in London called Italia Conti.
Really?
And I was, they put a post out looking for a deputy head of dance for the school. I applied, got the job, and I worked full-time in a drama school for 2 years. I did September 2020 to September 2022.
Oh, that was that must have been fantastic after that.
I mean, it was great in terms of I was in a full-time job. I was getting a salary, which I'd never had before because I've always worked as a freelancer as well. So I was like, this is great. I'm getting,
Very dangerous getting that comfortable.
I know, right? It's very dangerous. But then I started in the midst of COVID. So we were literally teaching online on Zoom. It was just awful. Yeah. Those poor students who were having to train in the arts over a laptop.
Yeah, in their living room.
I mean, it was just awful. And I also now, I have to say, have the utmost respect for anyone that works in a drama school because it's really hard.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a completely different skill set. It made me realise that I'm a director and a choreographer, not a dance teacher.
Yeah.
I loved it at the time, but you've really got to put in the hours. You've really got to invest in these students. You can't fluff it either. You've really got to know what you're talking about. And I went in with experience of working in the arts, but not necessarily a trained dance teacher.
Yeah.
So I think I was giving them the tools to work in the industry, but I wasn't necessarily the right person to be teaching them how to be the best singer, dancer, actor. Yeah, it's a very different skill set. But I got loads from it, and I was always in a safe space to create content constantly for 2 years because I was in a room with students.
Yeah.
So I learned lots of different skills: how to work quick, how to think on my feet, how to work with a lot of different needs. And I was working with a big volume of students, so it wasn't like a room where I had 30 actors. You're working with sometimes not at one time, but over 300 students sometimes. So you're having to work really quick on how do I get through to this person if they don't understand.
Yeah.
So even though I said, I look back and think, maybe I wasn't right for the job, I think I learned a lot myself, selfishly, and probably gave a lot to the students that maybe they hadn't had before.
Yeah.
So there was use in me being there.
But of course, and I think there are certain things that, of course, you want a good teacher to teach you the skills and the technique and everything. But there are just certain things that you can only learn from listening to someone who's actually been out working.
Yeah.
Like I spoke to someone who had, written out their resumes in school, and they were like, yeah, but would I put it the year before, or would I put I'm like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It's just a piece of paper that gets you the audition. Yeah. Hopefully, just make it seem make sure you look good on your resume. Yeah. And don't lie, and just make it look good. Yeah. It's not an end goal having a good resume. It's just getting you through the door.
Yeah, and I think also I was probably saying a lot of controversial things now I look back, in terms of maybe I shouldn't have been saying that, but in truth it was what they needed to hear. There were a lot of students, not just Italia Conti, but wherever I was working, or at the time prior, or where I'm working now in different drama schools, people are really hung up on audition technique.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but actually, you just need to go in a room, be yourself, do the job, sing the song, do the routine, and go.
Yeah.
And they're so hung up on what they wear, what their hair needs to be like.
Did I choose a song in the right style?
Right. And it's to be honest, actually, they're probably just wanting to know if you can sing.
Yeah.
And in an audition routine, I don't really care if you get the whole thing wrong, as long as I can see a glimmer of they'll be able to pick that up in 3 weeks, no problem. But they understand the style, and they understand my vision, and they're on board with it. So they'll want to work with me, and I'll want to work with them.
It is very funny that you say that, because in the previous episode, I had on a dancer who came to exactly that conclusion. He said, I don't think the most important thing is getting the steps. It's just figuring out what do they want to see. If they want to see joy through the dance, it's like, okay, then bottle up joy and give them all the joy in the world and trust that they will, pick up the steps during rehearsals.
Of course. And and essentially, if you think about it, it's not my job role or ambition really to be able to drill a number and make the steps look tight. That's what good assistants are there for, or good dance captains. Right. I'm there to be able to work with the director to see, is this story being told well, and is it appropriate, and is it correct? Is the comedy landing well, or is the drama landing well? If it's a different thematical tone to it. So again, I don't really care if you were to stand there and completely fluff the steps up, because actually if I saw that you really understood what I wanted, and again you were on board with it, because it's not just about what I want, it's that you felt something, you were like, oh, I enjoyed doing that, then I'd probably just say to you, oh, should we just stay for 10 minutes after when no one's in the room, because you probably got it wrong because you were nervous, or there was loads of people watching you. And then lo and behold, I've been in situations where I've seen someone do it absolutely bang on because there's no one else in the room and they're just nervous.
Yeah.
So I think, I've learned as a creative in auditions, see beyond sometimes what people are giving you. Yeah. Don't just take something for face value and go, oh yeah, they can't pick up because they didn't do that well. Or, if someone cracks on a note, or someone maybe their pitching isn't right, it's maybe just because they're not understanding where it sits in their voice. It's not because they haven't got good pitch.
Yeah.
Or it's maybe that they've practiced it in a different key and then they're not comfortable with this key. So, give that person time that they deserve, because they've put a lot of work into this. Don't just say, I'm really sorry. Let's work out a key for you. Yeah. Or, if the composer's okay with that, obviously. Or let's see how this scene sits well with you, because you're obviously not understanding like where I'm going with this. So let's just have a conversation about it.
I think that's really important to hear. And I think as actors and musical artists, or whatever you want to call us, it's like we should give the people behind the table at an audition some credit as well, in the sense that even if I fuck up on the audition, they are professional enough to see through that. They can see, you can catch pretty quickly if someone, he can sing. Or you can see when we start moving, like, he can dance. It's even though you fuck up the steps.
In the first 10 seconds.
Yes. That's why I've done one audition in London. It was 16 bars. That's all you get to sing, which is, in Norway, is like, we normally get like 2 or 3 minutes to sing.
Not in London.
We get to have that entire like journey, and I'm going to tell the story, and it's like, you have 16 bars. Off you go. But in that time, at least for like a first round of an audition, if you can sing after 16 bars.
Yeah, of course. And it's funny, isn't it? Because I've always got a real, what's the word I'm thinking of, thing, where you can see what somebody looks like from a video or a CV or a headshot. So if someone's not right, I do think don't bring them in and get them to sing 16 bars when you know that they're not appropriate for that role. So I think when it comes to something like singing 16 bars, the creative team should already know that you are appropriate and right.
Yeah.
But now it's just a case of ticking that box of, is the timbre of their voice correct for this role? And are they moldable in terms of what the style of this choreography could be? All of these things. But there's a real sort of what's the word I'm trying to say? Culture at the minute, where it's just like try and get in as many people as you can into a room to audition. And I think that's really unfair on people who are spending, £70 or whatever on a vocal lesson to sing 16 bars and someone go, thank you, that's all we need.
Yeah.
Maybe they've given a day up of work, or they don't live in London, and I think, you know, it's not good.
Yeah. At least if there's, you know, very specific things that you're looking for.
Right.
Because people can surprise you as well, but if you just know it's not right, then yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because you're sort of wasting everyone's time, aren't you?
Yeah. And also I think it's important, you know, speaking to you as an actor, I really like to have a conversation in a room and have that time that's not 16 bars, at least 5-10 minutes, where we can have a conversation and you can feel inspired by what my potential vision is for the show, rather than just doing it because you want a job.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'd really like for you to hear what my thoughts on the piece are.
Right.
And you give me your version of what you think about that. And even if you don't agree with it, I quite like that. If you were to challenge it and go, well, I like that take, Adam, but maybe how about if we go here? Because then there's going to be some exciting, creative like friction in the room that we can create something beautiful together.
Yeah.
If I just tell you what to do and you went like, well, that's not going to come up with anything exciting, is it?
No.
I want you to be invested in the piece. I want you to go, this is a really cool take on it, or I feel that I would work really well with him, her, whoever.
Yeah. How did you end up? I mean, obviously, everyone in London dreams of one day working in Oslo, Norway. So, how did you end up getting Jesus Christ Superstar?
Well, Cressida, who was the director and choreographer, I knew of through me just sort of, I think emailing her like a long time ago. It was probably for my Andrew Lloyd Webber show, being like, hello, do you want to come and watch it?
Really?
Probably, yeah. And we just always had like an email conversation of like what show she was doing, what show I was doing, like supporting each other. And I remember she came to come and watch a show that I directed and choreographed in London called Brooklyn. Have you ever heard of it before? The musical?
I don't think so.
Yeah. And it was quite a big deal for me at the time. It was like the UK premiere of this show that had been done.
And you directed
Broadway.
it, not choreographed it?
I did both, direct and choreographed
Really?
it. Yeah. And it was the UK premiere in London, and I invited Cressida to come and watch it. And that's when we started to really have an open conversation about how we could work together.
Right.
It'd always just been like supporting each other before that. And then she came to come and see the show. I was like, I really enjoyed it. I think I like your work. And then it was just finding the right project, really. And then the email just dropped into my inbox of, hi, I'm doing Jesus Christ Superstar in Oslo. I'm directing and choreographing it, but I would really like someone to come and assist me, I guess, who is also a director and choreographer that could help me with this, because it's a big show. And I think for one person to do both roles is definitely achievable, but needs some support, because it's such a mammoth of a show.
Yeah.
So that's where I came in, and then that's how that job came about. And I sort of had an interview, well, I guess a chat really with the producers and about what my role could be, how I could support, because there's many different roles, isn't there? There's like an associate, there's a resident, there's an assistant, and I guess I could have been any of those, really.
All of them, really.
Yeah. So I guess it just became this role of assistant director and choreographer to come in and support Cressida, and then that's how that came about. And
did you have any expectations of working in Norway? Did you think it was going to be very different?
I was really nervous.
Were you?
Yeah, really nervous, because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how a room would be here. I didn't know how much English people were going to be able to speak. I was thinking, am I going to have to learn Norwegian? Am I going to have to try and like claw my way through these rehearsals? I'd also never really done a full-time job as an assistant before either. I'd always been the director or the choreographer.
Yeah, so you were sort of learning on the job there as well.
Yeah, so there was so many things that were just so unknown to me that I was coming into this like, well, just gotta see how each day pans out, really.
And did you and Cress talk about that beforehand? Like what? Like I want you to speak up when this happens, or when
I was very clear with Cressida that I needed to know what she needed from me.
Yeah,
because I think being an assistant is a very different role from being a director and a choreographer. You know, you're essentially not there to direct and choreograph the show. You are there to support the vision of the director and the choreographer, whether that be chipping in when needs be, or whether that be helping out when something isn't working, or it's
remembering counts.
Remembering counts, knowing what the blocking is, because that's such a huge task for one person. It's too much. So I made it really clear, like, I need to know what you want from me. So then I kind of knew I had these guidelines going in, but again, I was learning day by day. Because I'd never worked with Cressida before either, so that was another thing.
It's so funny because we view you as sort of this duo. Like to us, you're the duo that comes in and directs and choreographs. But this was the first time you worked together.
It's the first time. Yeah. I mean, we'd done a show together, From Here to Eternity.
Oh, really?
Charing Cross Theatre.
I love that one.
Yeah. And Cressida was the
30-year man.
Oh, it's a great show. But Cressida was choreographing that, and I only went in for a couple of days to help out with things. I wasn't really her assistant. It was kind of just testing the water on whether we'd work together well.
Yeah.
So we kind of did a show. Yeah. But we'd never been in a studio prepping things together. We'd never really hung out socially. We'd never done all of these things. It was all just so new. So
plus you're in a city that doesn't speak English as their first language.
With kind of not really knowing anybody here as well, and just kind of, dropped into this city for X amount of weeks. And there was a lot of self-discovery and learning on the job for me. But I got so much out of it. Yeah. So much out of it. Yeah.
Self-discovery in terms of what?
Self-discovery in terms of how I work, because when you're working with somebody in terms of as an assistant, you're trying to like funnel how they see things and like what they want, right? And obviously, like, my brain works differently, so sometimes I would be like, well, maybe you could do it this way, maybe you could do it that way, but unless it's asked, that's not appropriate,
right?
So I think when I'm saying self-discovery, I was like learning. I had the space to like think about maybe how I create and how I do things. Because as an assistant, there's sometimes a lot of sitting around and being there in case you're needed, but you might not do anything. But then there's days where you're running around like a mad person because you're having to like do everything.
Especially with Cress, maybe.
Yeah, you're like running around being like, ah. Yeah. So, I had a lot of time when, Cress was working with the principals, like developing things in a room where I could just sit back and have space to obviously notate things like you're saying counts, but also just think. I mean, you never really have that in a room because as a director and choreographer, you're always trying to be on the front foot and, come up with ideas and know how you can change things. So it was an amazing opportunity for me. I loved it. I really did.
Is there a difference in, I don't know, culture level? Is there a difference from when you've worked in London? In the actors, for example?
Not really.
No.
I found everyone to be incredibly disciplined here. Yeah. I found that everyone was just really good at their job, and I think there's a nice sense of trust here that everyone's just good at their job. You don't need to kind of tell people off or tell people that they need to be on time or do these things. People just are there. You don't really need to do that in London either, but, you know, if people are quite new to the business, for example, and don't know these things, but I felt like everyone just kind of knew that that was expected.
Yeah.
And the etiquette was really good. And I think we were quite spoilt in Jesus Christ Superstar that we had a really long rehearsal period.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I've ever had before.
Wow.
Ever. I mean, our tech was so long.
Yeah, it felt like 4 years.
It was so long, wasn't it? But great, because then we could really chop and change and explore things. But that was something that I found very different here from in London. Even if we were on a really big commercial show that was opening in the West End, we're still tight for time.
Why is that? Is it just a money thing?
I think it must be. Yeah, it always falls down to money. Yeah, and obviously, you know, if you have another week in a theatre, I mean, I see it as in London, there's obviously a bigger sector of theatre, so there's more producers.
Yes,
there's more happening.
Yeah,
so therefore a theatre can charge through the roof to hire it for a week, because they say if you don't pay it, then this person is going to come in and do it.
Right.
So whereas if you're in a place where theatre is quite limited and there's only a certain amount of companies, the theatre are probably going to be very grateful to hire that space out.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. They make so much money when they start playing, don't they?
Yeah.
Like West End shows. It must be...
Well, I mean, yes. And again, I'm not a producer, so I don't know. But I also think that you'd be quite surprised how much they have to spend to run a show.
Yeah.
I think you see the money they make, but then you don't see everything that comes out of that.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I just think it's probably more extreme than we think. And I think to actually make a profit on a show in a commercial sector, it's hard. It's really, really, really hard.
Yeah. Do you have any projects going on now? Something you're going to do? Can you talk about why you're in Oslo?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I just didn't know if I was allowed to. If you're allowed to
I think so.
speak on it. Yeah?
Well, I think if Ingrid says no, then we can cut it out. So Ingrid, who was Mary.
Yeah.
The
lead singer in High as a Kite.
Yes, is the lead singer in High as a Kite. And is starting her Scandinavian tour later this year. Yep. With her band, High as a Kite. And we just spoke a lot in Jesus Christ Superstar rehearsals about sort of our passions for movement, not necessarily dance, but just movement in general. And have you ever heard of a company called Punch Drunk?
Yes.
Yeah, well, she loves Punch Drunk.
Yeah.
And
I know. She recommended it 5 times.
Yeah, she loves it. And I'm a huge fan myself. So we sort of started talking about that and how movement can be explored in a very creative way that's not just dance. And I think it sort of maybe sparked something for her that was like, oh, that's exciting. Maybe we could do something along these lines with the show, because Ingrid is the lead singer of the show, but is mainly the focal point. And that's quite a big thing for like an arena tour to be just on your own on a stage. So what we're trying to explore is how, from those conversations we had, how we can create movement and staging for her to make it really comfortable, that's not necessarily giving her dance steps, because that would be inappropriate, right? You know, and it's not correct for the band, it's not right for the branding. It's just about how we can find the flow and tell the story through movement, which again, we were inspired by talking a lot about Punch Drunk, because that's what they do. They have a lot of dance, but then they have just a lot of staging and storytelling. So yeah, I'm in Oslo to answer your question, because we're rehearsing her show. We're doing a pre-production for 2 weeks.
It's really cool.
Yeah, really, really cool. Just me and her in a room for 2 weeks. Yeah. 24 songs.
Yeah.
It's a lot of songs, but we're getting there, and it's really exciting, really exciting. And then I'll go back to London next week. Actually, I'm going back to Newcastle, for a wedding. Then back to London, and then I'm doing a Shakespeare play next month, doing 12th night.
Really?
Mm-hmm. With actor musicians. Yeah,
all right.
Which is going to be really cool, hopefully. And then I'm doing a job in Germany later in the year. I'm doing My Fair Lady.
Yeah.
I'm choreographing My Fair Lady in Germany.
Where?
I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Neustrelitz, and it's a city that is north of Berlin.
Okay.
They have their own...
it's their Newcastle.
Yes, it's their Newcastle. Yeah. I think it's their kind of resident house where they have their one musical a year, and it's a co-production with the local. I think it's the local opera house, and like the musical theatre producers like together. So I think it'll be half opera singers and half musical theatre singers as well. So that will be interesting.
That'll be interesting.
But I've done quite a bit in opera, so I think I know how to channel opera singers now, and like how to move them and make them feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I think. I
hope.
Yeah, I hope. Yeah. So that'll be. But then obviously I've got to take some time out of those rehearsals to fly back to Oslo to open Ingrid's show, and then I'll fly back to Germany.
Wow.
So yeah, back and forth.
Helena would probably know where the German city was. She had a German management.
Oh.
She has an amazing story of being sent to an audition in the Alps. Just
in Germany?
No, that was in Switzerland actually, for like this off production of Rock of Ages or something. And she was like, how do I get to this place? And she had to take a bus up to a mountain. It was an abandoned school. She was like, this is the day I get murdered.
So this is the end. Bye.
She was in the Alps, overlooking Switzerland. It was
so where was the theatre? In the Alps?
I don't know. I don't think she knows either. And it was like, there
really
was no
bizarre.
bus there. The only bus that went was if someone wanted to go there. So it's
that's really bizarre.
Yeah. So it's probably not there, but she had a management. I think it was in Hamburg. She was primarily auditioning.
I mean, there's a lot going on in Germany.
Yeah, it is,
especially in the opera world. There's a lot happening. Musical theatre, yes, but I think they've not quite cut through the commercial sector yet. It's your big shows that get the big audiences in. But I mean, we're doing My Fair Lady with a mixed group of.
It's going to be very interesting.
Artists. So we'll see. I think it'll be cool. I also think it's really nice to get people with different skill sets in a room,
definitely,
to inspire each other.
Yeah,
because I really love seeing opera singers watch ballet dancers and go, wow, how do they do that?
Yeah.
But yet a ballet singer listening to someone sing an aria and go, oh my God, how are they doing that with their voice?
Yes.
Or an opera singer looking at a musical theatre actor and going, how are they singing, dancing and acting all at the same time?
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I think it's really good to kind of throw people into a room.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah, into your room where you do your classes, where you acting through dance.
Yeah.
Movement.
Yeah.
Acting through dancer.
Acting through dance, yeah.
Through dance, yeah.
I mean, if you're in London, you should come along sometime.
Yeah.
Do you go to London often?
No, Helena was just there, actually. I don't go often. I go when I can afford it and when I have time.
Yeah.
Just to get some inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it is the epicenter of musical theatre in Europe, really. Mm. It's like you can go, just the, like in Norway, in Oslo, you have, at all times, you probably have one, maybe two musicals going. That's it, in Oslo. So when you go there, and it's like, I can go see any of these 20 shows right now.
And then you've got all of the off West End as well, where there's another, 100 musicals being made. Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's very inspirational.
It is. It's an inspirational city. I do love it.
Yeah.
It's a lot sometimes.
I would imagine.
It's expensive.
Do you see yourself sort of... do you feel like you've settled down in London? Do you see yourself staying there? Or do you always have Leeds in the back of your mind?
I don't think I'd move back up north again, just because there is so much to offer in London.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that I would stay in like central. I mean, I'm not living in central London, but like in a commutable area of London. I think I'll always stay around the area, but maybe just move a little bit further out. Just mainly because it's so expensive.
Yeah.
And as an artist, you go, well, when am I ever going to be able to buy a house?
Yeah.
And I just don't know how people do it. It's crazy money.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll probably move out, but I think I've been spoilt living there for so long because there are so many opportunities that if I was to move back to Leeds, for example, I'm scared that a lot of opportunities would become thinner.
Yeah.
And then I would start to panic. I think, what do I do? What do I do now? So, yeah, there's, as long as you're really good at contacting people, as long as you're really good at networking and hustling, there'll always be some work that you can develop.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a big show that you're opening, you know, developing shows, getting in a studio with people.
I think London for me was... I ended up having an idea that I wanted to go to London, but I think it was mostly to prove to myself that I could, because I see it as the highest level of whatever it is I'm doing. So it was just about like proving to myself that I could do it, but now I don't feel like I have that same... I think now I've gotten to a point where it would be cool to say I have done it is more important to me than actually doing it. And I think, I don't know, it's not a closed door, but it's like I don't have that like burning desire right now, at least.
Well, also you're in a position where you're doing well here.
Yep.
So it would be a very bold choice, should we say, for you to leave here and kind of start again from scratch, because obviously a lot of, as we know, getting work is, yes, auditioning, but also knowing someone and someone knowing your work. So, you know, you can walk into a room here with a casting director or a director that you've worked with and they immediately know, oh, yes, he's right for this role, I've worked with him before. Yeah. Whereas it'd be so hard, wouldn't it, to just start? It would. And exhausting. Yeah. And I think I actually got to a level, like, because I did 3 years of musical theatre, and then you say you started dancing late. You were 11. I was, I think, 21. When you started dancing? Yeah. That's so impressive. Really? Yeah. Thank you. Because you're a good dancer. I think you are. Okay, thank you. Yeah. I just realised that I was never getting through the dance auditions. Right. So I spoke to the principal at my school and said, could I enter the dance program at this school? So that was, okay, so it's 8 hours a day, only dancing. And how did you find that? Terrifying. And because I went into that room, she wanted me to go into the 3rd year of that program. I mean, that's... So when I went into that room to do a ballet class, that was my 2nd ballet class ever in my life. And I was there with people who had been doing ballet 15 years. So in comes this Polish dance teacher. He's like, okay, everyone, to the bar. It's first position, demi, grand plie, pour the bras forward. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know what the words, I don't know what that means. Yeah, and then everyone just started dancing. I was like... What? So mechanical. Yeah, so I was just like trying to... Yeah. But I get really like obsessive about it. So I bought this ballet foot stretcher, you know, the piece of wood. Yeah. I would sit every night with that. I bought ankle weights. I would watch every move, like how to do it. I took classes in the evenings. Then I was just obsessed with that. That's impressive. Thank you. Did you enjoy it though? Because obviously, I did. You know, you you were putting yourself through it because you were like, I need it.
Yes.
But obviously there's a difference to I need it to I really enjoy this.
I got to a point where I thought I really enjoy it because I think I really enjoy the maybe athletic aspect of it. I love being tired, working hard and everything. But I think I always had, my goal was always to just get into musical theatre. But I got carried away and like maybe I should apply for some dance companies and everything. I got to that point, but I was obviously nowhere near the level of the people applying for those companies. But it's funny that you opened something called acting through dance, because I felt like I grew tremendously as a dancer from actually, especially my modern dance classes, because it was just about looking at each other and responding physically. You couldn't use words. And I think I had an acting teacher who said that Norwegian actors are very good from the waist up, because it's cold 8 months of the year, you walk like this. Whereas the French and the Italian, they get their bodies for free because it's warm all the time. And
interesting.
So you just get sort of rigid. I think a lot of Norwegian actors are sort of rigid, hands in the pockets, and just very good at communicating through words, but not necessarily through the body. So I think just going through that modern dance type thing, like getting all loose and fluid, and my dance teacher was very kind, called it, you have a very pedestrian style of dancing. I'm like, okay, that means I have no technique, right?
Yeah. That's a polite way of saying it. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's what I did, but I grew tremendously as an actor from it, I think.
But I think you did it the right way around, in terms of you did your acting first and then you layered on the dance technique. So now when you're doing a show, you approach it from an acting perspective first, which is what I am extremely passionate about as a creative, hence me making this program, Acting Through Dance, because you can have the most amazing facility and the best technique, but unless you're able to move an audience or move the person on stage emotionally or progress the story, the moves just don't mean anything. They're really unnecessary, and they're what I call empty steps. They don't mean anything. So I think it's harder for people who have trained technically in dance to then go to acting lessons, because they are, again, for what we were talking about before, they're filled with habits, and their posture is so good that you can see a dancer a mile off because of how they walk, and then you're having to direct a scene where you're like, no, I just want you to walk. Just, you don't need to point your feet, just walk. But they've been so drilled to this is how your hips are aligned, this is what your back does, etc., etc. So I think you went about it the right way in terms of
maybe
the progression. Well, no, there's no right or wrong way, is there? But I think there are
very many times I wish I'd started dancing a lot earlier.
Well, I think, ironically, it's my preference that I think you went in that way.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it's easier to... Because if we're in a rehearsal room together, I can keep going over the dance until we get it. We can do it every night, that's fine. And I know that because of muscle memory and time and sleeping on it, you will get it. But it's going to be really hard for me to get out of you an understanding of how you envisage this character. I can direct it, but you've got to come up with the options, and I'm not in your brain, so I don't know how you can relate to that, or how we're going to get to that emotional place, for example. So, and especially working with you as well, I felt that that is definitely where you came from an acting perspective first, which is, I think is, in musical theatre, I'm not saying it's the way to do it, but it's my preference that it's the acting first.
That's very good. And I really enjoyed working with you as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for wanting to come on Husk at du lever drømmen. You can try to say that.
Go on, do it slowly, I'll try.
Husk
at
du lever.
It's too much now.
lever drømmen.
Drømmen.
Yeah. It's cool. It's remember you're living the dream. So husk at du Lever drømmen.
Live drømmen.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try it together because it'll go wrong, but thank you.
Thank you so much for wanting to be here.
You're welcome.
Og tusen takk til deg som har lyttet. Det ble det første norsken jeg snakket her.
Tusen takk.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.